I suppose as a starting point, it was just an overall desire to help um, and to help people who, have been in situations that I have been in the past myself. Um, so that would have been a starting overarching desire, but through the actual process of doing the mentoring itself, one comes to realize just perhaps how much benefit um, they can give to others. And I think it's also at times can be quite healing for oneself. When you're able to give somebody a sense of what you've been through yourself, and you're able to talk through um, a couple of scenarios from experience and give somebody options where they thought they didn't have options before, um, just by helping to broaden um, the expanse of their thinking around a particular constraint that they're facing. Um, I think when somebody comes back and tells you um, the benefit that it's made for them, then that's really moving. And to be a bit more specific on it, um, when you're um, when you're trying to help people from this community where maybe they haven't been able to bring them full selves to work, um, and you're able to, from experience, talk a person through um, the options that they have that they think they didn't have, and the ways that they can bridge themselves through to a place where they can bring them full selves to work, and then you see them actually action it and do it. Um, that's about as rewarding as it comes. I think there's a real prerequisite for um, coming with the patience and openness to wait and listen for somebody to tell you what's really going on, um, and to give you enough background that you can actually um, really understand the whys of the situation that the person is on, is facing into. And often it's a lot more broad than, the very specific elements around some work problem that they're facing. Um, and I think this is quite a unique program, right? Uh, because in some sense, anybody should be able to mentor anyone, right? Um, but there seems to be something about this particular program where the personal and the professional context is uh, very much required. Um, and speaking to, I guess, like-minded might be too specific, but um, people who get some of that context um, is super important. Um, so I don't know if that sort of answers the question, but there's a lot of challenge that comes around. Um, Going back to my previous point, people who don't always feel they can be fully honest or fully themselves, or the basic challenge that people have of um, you know, you don't want to be treated differently, but you do want to be met as you are. Um, and so there's this question of, well, there's always this strange challenge that people have of saying, well, I don't want to come out and announce something, um, because why should I have to do that? But then at the same time, if I don't do that, I can't meet people in that honest place. And then I'm going to constantly face challenges around that, and I'm not going to feel fully honest sometimes. And that just puts a perhaps unnecessary constraint or limitation or ceiling on somebody's feelings about their own prospects, and sometimes they might then make choices in their career to go to safer places where um, you know they they don't have to um, bring all of themselves. If I had any advice for aspiring mentors, it's the fact that you are dealing with this very specific mentorship for a reason, and that is because you can bring both the professional and the personal context um, to bear. So um, don't try to avoid the latter. So it's very important to meet the person as a person and really try to understand the full context of why they're seeing the challenges the way they are and the full context of what their options might be.
I guess I thought maybe that um, it would be a scheme where maybe I had the wrong impression at one point about my mentor's capacity for how much they could see me. Zach's obviously a very important person. There's lots of meetings to go to, and I'm so glad and I love the time that I have with him. Um, but it's maybe shorter than I thought, and maybe I thought that we would end up going off on like coffee trips or something, here, there, and everywhere. But I think I've learned to love the time that I do have with him, and when we do have these half an hour sprints, they're really focused, and I really come away feeling like I've learned a lot from it. So I think I've just adjusted more to that as opposed to like, I don't know, taking afternoons out, going and playing golf or something.
I think it can be to some degree what you want it to be, right? And other people uh, might choose a longer, patient approach and, spend a lot more time with the people. From my perspective, I think the job is uh, I would say it as a job, but to challenge people's thinking, and the best person to come up with the answer is the person themselves. You're never going to have enough time um, to to give them the perfect answer because the perfect answer is going to come from you if you're thinking about it in that context, and therefore it's not the perfect answer. And so, the challenge becomes what can you do within the time frame to um, ask those often very simple questions of somebody that makes them think beyond the same one or two options that they've been going over and over, um, and make them realize that they've got plenty more options and help them to see things with slightly different hues, if not colors. I didn't have a mentor before, and particularly not one with this context. And I'd like to believe that I could have had an easier life, or saved a bit of time, um, if I could have availed of such a service. Um, and being a mentor, you know, I uh, I kind of come from a background of coaching sport, and then with managing people and whatever, uh, being being good at asking questions um, is possibly one of the best leadership skills that anybody can learn. And I think if somebody can hone that skill while doing something um, uh, as fulfilling and mutually beneficial as this is about as good as it gets.
Do you know what I would say as a very specific piece of advice is don't be afraid to flip the mentoring relationship on its head. You know, rather than always being the one receiving the advice, sometimes maybe challenge your mentor on some of the assumptions that they're making or the suggestions that they're making, or maybe even offer, for them to be a hand for them to hold on to, because some of these mentors are people who are, in positions that are very, very high up, and maybe they're not at those sort of boots on the ground positions anymore. And maybe listening to you as someone who's at the very beginning of their journey and learning what it's like to have to climb the ladder and stuff, they can take some lessons from that too. So don't be afraid to kind of offer um, your opinion, your advice as well, rather than making it just a one-way relationship. Career-wise, I think having these sessions with Zach has been really focused time for me to think about questions that I would often put off otherwise. It's a chance to think about the kind of overarching long-term picture and tackle those really scary questions of, what am I going to make of my life, right? And Zach's, like he said, someone who's really good at asking the right questions and really probing me to get to the place where I can then be like, do you know what? That is something that I'm interested in, or I think I'm going to pursue that, or maybe this isn't for me. Then on the personal side, um, I think I would say we have conversations about things I'd never really even thought were problems or challenges of mine. To give you context, um, my job is rotational, right? So I move every 6 months, and every 6 months I start from scratch with a new group of people. And sometimes it can be tough because those people are not familiar with who I am. And I think it can be very easy for me to kind of not come out and just sort of go back and to being a sort of person before I came out. I just feel like I have to come out basically every 6 months. New group of people come out, and I think sometimes I'm just lazy and I don't want to do it. But Zach made the very important point that you really should do that, because if you don't come out every time you join a new group of people, they won't know you for who you are, and you'll feel like you're hiding things all over again, and all that hard work you've done about telling people is kind of gone out the window. So really, really helping me with problems I didn't know I had. That's where the mentorship has helped personally, I would say. I think I didn't know what I wanted from this program, to be honest with you, to begin with. I just thought having a new, having like another person in my network would just be great, and I may as well just go for it. But I didn't come with any real concrete objectives or things I wanted to get over and discuss. And I think I've become a lot better at setting the agenda now. When it comes to our meetings and what we want to discuss, and really being able to leverage the best of what Zach has to offer to really support me in both my career and my business um, growth.